Alright, so I've never done this before. This is going to be a bit tricky, and I apologize for any noise in the background. That is just noise from my dryer going on. Now, if you have visited the R Jailbreak Discord and even the R Jailbreak subreddit on Reddit, you'll see that there are a lot of people who are constantly asking questions like, "Hey, I'm new to jailbreaking. How can I downgrade? How can I jailbreak the latest version?" Even people who sort of know how to jailbreak, but they're just constantly asking for ECAs. It's kind of a meme, running joke in the community. Now, what I'm going to be doing is, because I'm really sick of seeing so many people ask for ETAs, and I'm incredibly sick of people just asking how to jailbreak. And I mean, I don't hate the noobs, if that's what you want to call them. I just think that this would be a really good... It would be good to have a video on what jailbreaking is and the terminologies behind everything. And I don't know if I'm the first one to really do a video like this. I feel like I'm probably not. But I think it's important that, if I can at least get this information out there to more people, then I think that would be, I think that it's important that I do that. And I'm not very good at these videos. I stutter a lot, so I'm not exactly the greatest at talking fast, so bear with me here. So something that I thought that I wanted to cover here, and really, again, this video is more for the noobs, people who are new to jailbreaking, they want to jailbreak. This webpage that you'll see that I have pulled up here, it's called the iPhoneWiki.com, and I'm going to be putting it in the description of all of these videos. But kind of the first thing that I wanted to talk about here is, what is jailbreaking? Well, jailbreaking is essentially, it is bypassing the restrictions on iOS, on Apple's devices, and being able to make your own modifications, whether that is in the file system or installing icon themes or tweaks, skin, that kind of thing. Tweaks to improve your life, quality of life things. Now, and it also is getting root access to the file system. Now, you may be asking, root access, what's that? Well, imagine this. So if you have a Windows computer, which you probably do, you'll see here, if you go into local disk and Windows right here, so this is root access. So this is what root access looks like. These are all of the files that are important for Windows. And now on Windows, most of these files are read-only. You can't actually write. I mean, you can write to them, but it's Windows being Windows. It's incredibly tricky as hell. Just to be able to write to these files and delete things, that kind of thing, And now on iOS devices, you can't see the root file system at all. It's restricted, so you can't even read to it. Whenever you jailbreak, you can get access to the root file system, and you can read and write to it. You can make your own modifications, but it is incredibly important for jailbreaking, for tweaks to work and such. Now, on newer jailbreaks, they have, particularly for iOS 15, iOS 15's jailbreaks, iOS 15 should be getting a jailbreak fairly soon, and it's going to be rootless, which essentially means that it only writes to var mobile. I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'll go through all of that in a little bit. And I apologize if this tutorial isn't the greatest. I'll try to explain it as best as I can. But that's essentially what jailbreaking is being able to install tweaks, have icon themes, quality of life improvements, being able to do things that Apple wouldn't want you to do. And part of that is getting read and write access to the root file system. Now, the iPhone Wiki, I have this pulled up here so that in case you can't really understand what I'm talking about, you can get up to speed. I mean, this is literally what it says: get up to speed in the community and learn how jailbreaks work. That's what this wiki is for. And in my opinion, I think that the Discord server and the subreddit are really bad at communicating this. And it's just post after post after post. Now, granted, it is partially other people's faults of not, going and doing the research themselves and just being fucking lazy and just making a post about it and being like, how do I jailbreak? You know, stop doing that, please. Go to this webpage, read the subreddit, read the Discord. I know that it's not very clear, that much is true, but it does give you a basic understanding. But I am making this video just because so you can hear my voice and actually see what's going on. So now let's talk about the history of jailbreaking. So if we go down here, and there should be so jailbreaking software. So let's go down to, this is going to be more of the history of jailbreaking. It should be firmware, or actually, I'm sorry, that's for downloads. I'll say this, it is very, it can be confusing. But let me see here. So it's down here somewhere. I may cut this video up, I don't know, it'd be a pain in the ass, but we'll see. So let's just do this, here we go. So it actually gives us this right here, jailbreak. The term jailbreak is the process by which full execute and write access is obtained on all the partitions of iOS, and then it gives some other, I guess, advanced, if you want to call it, information. And then here we go, jailbreak tools. So iPhone OS 1.0. So with 1.0, we got some of the first jailbreaks, and those were incredibly easy. iOS was not very secure back then, and so things like boot ROM exploits were very, very easy. Even exploits like that were loaded in, Safari. It's just a very buggy, non-secure place at the time. Really, just up until like iOS 6, iOS 7, it was just very insecure. And not to say that it didn't get better, but we got things like AppTap Installer, and I'm sure some of you don't really care about this, because I want to jailbreak iOS 15, and I get it. We're going to get to that, and I won't go into too much detail about these, but these are all of the jailbreaking tools for iPhone OS 1.0. And then when we go to iPhone OS 2.0, we got Pawnage Tool. That was very popular for the original iPhone, 3G, iPod Touch. We got to iPhone OS 3, which we got Purple Rain. Red Snow is kind of a compilation of all jailbreaks, along with, it also had its own exploits too. But then we got Black Rain, which was very, very popular. Black Rain was amazing. And then we get to iOS 4. They started calling it iOS. And we got all these. So we got the Star jailbreak, which was a userland untethered jailbreak through Safari, which was insanely cool at the time. I've used it. And then we get to iOS 5, iOS 6, iOS 7. I personally started around iOS 5. That was when I started jailbreaking for the first time. It was iOS 5, and I did it with Red Snow. Now, we get to iOS 6, iOS 7. We got Evasion. We got Geek Snow as well. Man, that brings me back. Then we got iOS 8. iOS 8 brought Pangu, PP jailbreak, Taiji. This was a really good time for jailbreaking iOS 8. And iOS 9, we got some of Pangu a little bit. Then Pangu stopped, and things kind of got dark around iOS 10. It wasn't really clear. But we did get Extra Recipe plus Yalu. Now, Extra Recipe was, if I recall... man. It's been a while. But anyway, we did get Yalu. Yalu, this was really the first iOS 10 jailbreak, was Yalu 10.0 to 10.1.1. I mean, that was it. Then we started getting things like Double Helix for 64-bit devices, and some of these came later, much later after iOS 10 actually came out. But things started getting dark around that period, and then iOS 11, which was a garbage OS of iOS. But we did get Electro. We got Uncover. Electro is made by Coolstar. If you don't know who Coolstar is, well, I'm not even going to talk about him because just a really shitty person altogether. Then we got Uncover, who Pawn's not much better, but I mean, he for the most part was drama free. But Uncover was where we first got. Uncover was the first version. You may have heard of Uncover, but that that stemmed around iOS 11. Pon 20 Pon 20 WND. I don't really know how you pronounce that, but he initially was working with Coolstar on Electra and didn't get along, and he decided to make his own jailbreak, which was Uncover, which was actually much more stable at the time. Then we get to iOS 12, and things get a lot better. Checkrain, we'll get to Checkrain in a second. You may have heard of Checkrain. But we got Chimera, Uncover. This, before Checkrain, during the 12 days when 12 was relevant, that was what we got. We got Uncover and Chimera. I remember those days very, very vividly. Then we get to iOS 13, and iOS 13, we did get the Odyssey jailbreak, which was made. Odyssey and what was it? Chimera, was it 12? Chimera, yeah. Chimera and Odyssey were both made by Coolstar as well. But anyway, so, oops, I was 13. Now, right around the mid-cycle of 13 was when we got Checkrain. I'll go into quick detail about that. So Checkrain it's a semi-untethered jailbreak, which means that you have to connect it to a computer to jailbreak. And every time your device rebooted or died, if you wanted to jailbreak again, you had to connect it to your computer, particularly a Mac or Linux machine. So your phone would still work. It would just work in a non-jailbroken state. And that's what this is, and it works all around the boot ROM exploit. It works around a boot ROM exploit called Checkmate. And Checkmate works on the A5 SoC through A11. If you don't know what that is, I'll sum it up. A5 is Apple's SoC for the iPhone 4S. A6 is the iPhone 5. A7 is the iPhone 5S. A8 is the iPhone 6. A9 is the 6S. A10 is the 7, and A11 is the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 10. So when this came out, this worked on nearly every single iPhone that Apple was selling, or just in existence. This was iOS 13. And 13 supported, I believe, the 6S. So it worked all the way from the 6S to the 7 to the 8 to the 10. And at the time, I think the newest iPhone, whenever the Checkmate exploit was released, I think the newest iPhone was the 10S. So there was only one device at the time that did not support this exploit. So it was a big deal. It was a very, very big deal. And especially because since it's a boot ROM exploit, it can never be patched. And what that means is that it's actually a bug on the physical chip. It's a bug on the physical chip. I forgot where the boot ROM is located, which chip it is. And so you can't patch this without hardware revision. So it was a very big deal because that meant that this exploit, which turned into Checkrain, worked on every single version of iOS, period. And this is a big deal during the iOS 13 time. So then we get to 14, and when we got to 14, things started to get a little bit tricky. So with 14, if I recall correctly, and don't quote me on this, but if I recall correctly, I believe with 14, things got a bit tricky because I believe Apple... I believe it was if you tried writing to the kernel in DFU mode. If you tried writing to the kernel or the boot ROM in DFU mode, I believe it would panic. It would panic, and it would go into a boot loop, from what I recall. And they did that with iOS 14 because they couldn't break the exploit, but they couldn't patch the exploit, but they wanted to try and break it and make it harder. And so it took a bit for Checkrain to come out for iOS 14. It took a couple of months, but it wasn't too bad of a wait. Now the downside was that on A11 you lost Face ID and passcode because you had to disable the SCP, and I believe the SCP also had something to do with Apple breaking the exploit. But things weren't really looking good with iOS 14. You could tell Apple was trying to be a lot more aggressive in terms of security and really trying to get this exploit to break as much as possible. And then we are here now with 15. Now 16 is coming out in a couple of days, but 15, you can see here, no tool available. It has been a year. It has been a year since we have gotten a jailbreak for iOS, and this is the first time in history that we have gone a year without a jailbreak for the latest version of iOS. This is the first year where they actually announced the next version of iOS, and we didn't even have a jailbreak for the previous one. So it's been very depressing recently in the community. Checkrain doesn't even work on this. I believe they made it to where if you try mounting the root file system, it panics. So it's just one other thing that they did. And I'd also like to add, I'm not a developer. I'm not familiar with things like IDA, that kind of thing. But I know I felt like I was what's the word I'm looking for, qualified to do this, considering that I've been doing this since iOS 5. So that's kind of the history of jailbreaking. That's kind of where we're at right now. We don't have a jailbreak for 15. We did get a kernel exploit for iOS 15 that works from 15.0 to 15.1.1. So if you are on those firmwares, we could potentially get a kernel-based jailbreak for these firmwares right here for any device. GeoSnow, who is a developer. GeoSnow, who is a developer, you may have seen him on YouTube a little bit. He is working on his own Checkmate-based iOS 15 jailbreak that is rootless. But anyway, so that's kind of the history of jailbreaking, where we're at, and then I'm going to start going into more of the terminologies and some of the things that the majority of people who are wanting to jailbreak or already are jailbreaking but don't really know everything that they should know. I'm gonna go into that into the next video. So thank you.